Hash the billionaire showed up as a beggar. When she shared her last bread, he started crying. The parking garage was empty. 3 in the morning. Cold concrete, fluorescent lights, the kind of place where stories don't usually end well. But this one ends with broken glass and broken hearts, and a truth that neither of them saw coming. Marcus Webb sat in his Range Rover, hands gripping the steering wheel, staring at his own reflection in the rearview mirror. 42 years old. $1 billion in the bank. A penthouse that overlooked Atlanta like it was his personal kingdom, and he had never felt more alone in his entire life. 3 hours earlier, he had been at a gala. The kind of event where old money mixed with new money, where deals worth millions happened in bathroom conversations, where everyone smiled and nobody was genuine. His wife of 15 years had been there too. Vanessa. Beautiful, cold, calculating Vanessa. She had spent the evening taking photographs with senators and celebrities, carefully curating her image for her Instagram account. She hadn't asked him how he was feeling, hadn't touched his hand once, hadn't looked at him like he mattered. But that was fine. Marcus had stopped expecting those things years ago. What he didn't expect, what shattered him into pieces in that parking garage at 3 in the morning, was the message he found on his wife's phone. A phone she had carelessly left on the car seat while she went back inside for her forgotten clutch. The message was from her personal trainer. "Can't wait to get you out of this marriage, baby. Once the prenup settles, we're set for life. He's so desperate to keep you that he'll pay anything. You know he can't stand being alone." Marcus had read it 3 times. Each time the words cut deeper. His wife wasn't just cheating, she was planning. She was calculating the exact moment when she'd have extracted the maximum amount of money from him, and then she'd disappear. She had told her lover that Marcus was desperate, that he couldn't stand being alone. And the worst part, the part that made his chest cave in, was that she was right. Marcus Webb had built an empire. He had done it the hard way. Born to a single mother who cleaned houses for a living, he had watched her sacrifice everything. Watched her work 18-hour days. Watched her come home with bleeding hands and an aching back and still find time to help him with his homework. She had given him everything. Everything. And she had made him promise one thing. Never forget where you came from. Never become someone who steps on people to climb higher. But somewhere between his mother's funeral and his first $1 billion, Marcus had broken that promise. He had become exactly what she feared. Cold, calculating, surrounded by people who wanted pieces of him but none of him wanted him. Vanessa wanted his money, his business partners wanted his connections, his friends wanted his invitations. And Marcus, sitting in that parking garage at 3 in the morning, realized that nobody wanted Marcus. Just Marcus, nothing more. Nobody wanted the man underneath the expensive suit and the corner office and the $1 billion net worth. So he made a decision that would change everything. He decided to test the world, or more accurately, he decided to test himself. He wanted to know if there was anybody anywhere who saw him as just a man. Not a billionaire, just a man. The plan formed in his mind like a living thing. He had a whole week before Vanessa was leaving for Miami with her lover. A whole week to disappear. A whole week to become nobody. Marcus left his phone at the penthouse, left his credit cards, took only $500 in cash and the clothes on his back. He drove to the worst part of Atlanta. The part where the city's forgotten people gathered. The part where billionaires didn't usually go. He found a homeless shelter run by a nonprofit organization. Explained to the director that he was doing research, that he needed to understand homelessness from the inside out. The director, a woman named Patricia who had been helping homeless people for 30 years, looked at him with eyes that saw right through him. "You're running from something," she said. "Yes," Marcus admitted. "Running to something too." "I don't know yet." Patricia nodded like that made sense. She gave him a cot in a room with 8 other men, gave him some worn clothes, gave him a job helping in the kitchen. $60 a day, minimum wage. Not enough to survive on, but Patricia said that was the point. She wanted him to understand what it felt like to work and still not have enough. The first 2 days were hardest. Marcus's muscles ached in ways he didn't know they could ache. His hands blistered from washing dishes. His feet hurt from standing all day. The other residents looked at him with suspicion. Why was this man, clearly not born into poverty, sleeping in their shelter? He didn't belong. But on the 3rd day, something shifted. Marcus stopped trying to belong and started just existing. He woke up when the others woke up. He ate the simple breakfast Patricia provided. He worked in the kitchen. He sat with the other residents in the evening and listened to their stories. Real stories, not the sanitized versions people told at galas. There was Raymond, a veteran who had lost everything to PTSD and addiction. There was Malcolm, a father of 3 who had lost his job and spiraled so fast he couldn't catch himself before he hit bottom. There was Keisha, a woman who had left an abusive relationship with nothing but the clothes on her back and the fierce determination to get her children back. They didn't know he was a billionaire. They thought he was just another person trying to climb out of a hole. And then there was Zara. Marcus first saw her on the 4th day of his self-imposed exile. She was in the kitchen when he arrived for his shift. Tall, dark-skinned, with hair that she had clearly tried to keep clean despite having no shower of her own. She was maybe 30, maybe 40, maybe anywhere in between. Life had weathered her face, but her eyes were sharp and kind. She was organizing the donated food, separating the items that were still good from the items that had spoiled. "You're new," she said without looking up. "Yeah," Marcus said. "You look like someone used to better things." Marcus didn't know how to respond to that, so he didn't. He just started helping her organize the food. They worked in silence for a while, then Zara said, "That's okay. Lots of people end up here who didn't think they would. One minute you're living your life. The next minute you're not." "What happened to you?" Marcus asked. Zara set down the can of beans she was holding and looked at him for the first time. Her eyes were the color of honey with light behind them, like someone had taken the warmth of the sun and pressed it into her iris. "My husband ran off with my life savings," she said simply. "I had 3 kids at the time. He took everything and left me with nothing. I couldn't afford the rent, lost the house, couldn't get a job because I didn't have an address, couldn't get an address because I didn't have a job. It's a circle, you know, a trap." "What happened to your kids?" Marcus's voice cracked. "My mother took them," Zara said. "She couldn't afford to take me too, so I came here, been here for 2 years, trying to save up enough money for my own place. But it's hard when you're making minimum wage and rent is $1,000 a month." Marcus did the math in his head. 2 years. 2 years of sleeping in a shelter, working for $60 a day, watching her children grow up without her in a grandmother's small house. "Do you ever see them?" he asked. "Every Sunday," Zara said, her face lighting up. "My mom drops them off and we spend the day together. They're doing good in school, getting bigger. My oldest, Maya, she wants to be a doctor. My middle one, Isaiah, he's into robots. And my baby, Emma, she just turned 5. She said their names like they were prayers, like each name was a sacred thing. "I'm going to get them back," Zara continued. "I know I am. It might take another 2 years, might take 5 years, but I'm going to do it. Because they deserve better than this, and I deserve better than this, and someday, I'm going to give us better than this." Marcus felt something break open in his chest. This woman, who had lost everything, who was living in a shelter, who had every right to be bitter and broken, was still fighting, still believing, still planning for a future where her children would be proud of her. He wanted to say something, wanted to tell her that he had $1 billion in the bank and that he would help her, wanted to give her everything right there in that moment. But he didn't, because he realized that wasn't what she needed. What she needed was to know that someone saw her, that someone believed in her, that someone understood that her dreams weren't naive or impossible. They were real and they were worth fighting for. "You're going to do it," Marcus said. "I know you are." Zara smiled. It was the kind of smile that made the shelter brighter. The kind of smile that reminded Marcus why his mother had told him to never forget where he came from, because people like Zara, ordinary people with extraordinary hearts, they deserved to be seen. The days that followed, Marcus spent as much time with Zara as he could. They worked the morning shift together. They ate lunch together. They sat in the evening common room and talked for hours. He learned that she had been a nurse before everything fell apart, that she had wanted to travel the world, that her favorite color was the same color as her eyes, honey gold, that she laughed at jokes that weren't funny because she was the kind of person who wanted everyone around her to feel good. And Zara learned that Marcus worked in business, which was true enough. That he was learning about life from a different perspective, also true. That he believed in second chances, that he believed people deserved dignity regardless of their circumstances, that he thought she was remarkable. All true. But Marcus never told her the whole truth. Never said, "I'm worth $1 billion and I'm testing you." That would have broken something fragile that was building between them, something that felt like the most honest thing that had ever happened to him. On the fifth day, the shelter ran out of food for lunch. There had been a miscommunication with the food bank. Donations hadn't come in. There was no money in the budget for an emergency purchase. Patricia made an announcement to the residents that lunch would be light, very light. She was sitting in the office, looking stressed, when Marcus walked in. "We'll figure something out," Patricia said. "We always do." But Marcus could see the weight of it on her. Feeding 40 homeless people on a shoestring budget. It was a miracle she kept it going at all. He went back to the kitchen where Zara was standing in front of the empty shelves. She was taking inventory, trying to see what she could make with what they had left. There was half a loaf of bread, a small jar of peanut butter, some canned beans. "We can make it work," Zara said, more to herself than to him. "We can stretch it, make it last." She pulled the bread out. It wasn't fresh. It was at least 2 days old, but it was what they had. Zara took the bread and started cutting it into small pieces. She spread the peanut butter thin, very thin, so that each slice would have at least a little bit. She heated the beans and added water to stretch the portions. It wasn't a lot, but it was something. When lunchtime came, she served it. Watched the residents eat. Made sure everyone got a portion, even though Marcus could see she was rationing herself, giving herself less than the others. After everyone had eaten, after the dishes had been cleared, Marcus asked her why she had given herself less. "Because there's not enough for everyone to have a full portion," Zara said simply. "So some of us have to have less." "You could have eaten more," Marcus said. "You've been working, you earned it." "So have they," Zara said, pointing to the residents in the common room. "Some of them are hungrier than me. Some of them are dealing with things I can't even imagine. If I take more, someone else goes hungrier. I can't do that." Marcus stared at this woman who was living on almost nothing and yet was still finding ways to give. Still finding ways to put others before herself. He thought about Vanessa in her penthouse, spending thousands of dollars on clothes she would wear once. He thought about his business partners, fighting over deals, stepping on people to climb higher. He thought about himself, sitting in that parking garage, feeling alone in his luxury, and he realized something. He realized that wealth wasn't measured in dollars. Wealth was measured in character, in compassion, in the kind of love that doesn't count the cost. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay on his cot in the shelter and thought about his life, thought about the choices he had made, thought about the promise he had made to his mother. And he thought about Zara. At sunrise, he got up and did something he had been planning to do all week. He went to Patricia's office. He wrote her a check, not a big check by his standards, but enough to keep the shelter running for 2 years. Enough to buy fresh food, enough to give the residents a chance at something better. He signed it with his full name, Marcus Webb. Patricia read it and her face went white. "How?" she whispered. "I came here to understand something," Marcus said. "I've learned it. This shelter, what you do here, it matters. These people matter. Let me help." Patricia tried to hand the check back. "I can't accept this. It's too much." "No," Marcus said. "It's not nearly enough. But it's what I can do right now." He left the office and went to find Zara. She was in the kitchen, preparing breakfast, still working for $60 a day, still giving more than she had. "I'm leaving today," Marcus said. Zara stopped what she was doing. "Leaving? I came here to learn something," Marcus said. "And I learned it. I learned it from you." "From me?" Zara laughed. "Marcus, I'm nobody. I'm just trying to survive." "You're not nobody," Marcus said. His voice was firm. "Certain. You're extraordinary. You're the most extraordinary person I've ever met." Zara's hand stilled. "You barely know me." "I know enough," Marcus said. "I know that you lost everything and you're still fighting. I know that you put others before yourself even when you have nothing to give. I know that you love your children more than you love yourself, and I know that you're going to get them back. You're going to build a better life for them." Tears started rolling down Zara's face. "How do you know that?" "Because I know who you are," Marcus said, "and who you are is someone worth believing in." He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. Inside was a check. $200,000, enough for a down payment on a house, enough for a year of expenses while she got back on her feet, enough to begin again. "I can't accept this," Zara said immediately. "You can and you will," Marcus said, "because it's not charity, it's a recognition of your worth. It's me seeing you and saying, yes, you deserve better. You deserve to have your children back. You deserve to have a home. You deserve to have a life that reflects the kind of person you are. Who are you? Zara whispered. Marcus didn't answer with his job title or his net worth. He answered with the truth. I'm someone your kindness changed, he said. I'm someone you saved. He turned and walked out of the kitchen, out of the shelter, out of the life he had constructed. He had come to test the world, but instead, the world had tested him. And he had failed to see people, failed to recognize goodness when it was standing right in front of him, failed to be the kind of person his mother had raised him to be. But Zara had passed that test with flying colors. Zara had shown him what real wealth looked like. The press didn't pick up the story until 3 months later. A mysterious billionaire had donated $200,000 to a homeless shelter. The woman who received the donation had used every penny to rebuild her life. She got her GED. She got certified as a registered nurse. She found a job at a hospital. She saved money for a house. And then she went to court and got her children back. The story went viral. Pictures of Zara and her 3 children moving into their new house. Pictures of her at her nursing graduation. Pictures of a woman who had been in a homeless shelter 6 months ago now standing in front of her own home with her babies in her arms. The internet did what the internet does. It dug. And it found out that the benefactor was Marcus Webb, the billionaire tech CEO. It found the shelter. It found Patricia. And it found the story of how Marcus had spent a week as a homeless person, learning what it really meant to struggle. The headlines were everywhere. Billionaire lives as homeless person, changes woman's life. From the streets to success, one woman's incredible journey. What true wealth really means. Marcus's phone started ringing. Business opportunities, speaking engagements, offers to write a book about his experience. He ignored all of it. Instead, he did something that shocked his business empire. He started giving it away, not everything. But he established a foundation dedicated to helping homeless people like Zara had been, like Zara's children could have been. He funded it with hundreds of millions of dollars. He recruited Patricia to run it. He hired Zara to be the director of outreach because he realized something. He realized that his $1 billion had never made him happy. His penthouse had never made him feel at home. His status had never made him feel seen. But 1 week in a shelter, with someone who cared about him not because of what he had, but because of who he was, had changed everything. And Vanessa, his wife, filed for divorce without getting the payday she was hoping for. Turns out Marcus had consulted with an excellent divorce lawyer who understood that her infidelity and her clear intent to financially exploit him negated most of her claims. She walked away with a settlement that was generous by normal standards, but a fraction of what she thought she was getting. She tried to fight it, tried to claim emotional distress, tried to convince the media that Marcus was a monster, but the world had already made up its mind. The world saw a woman who had tried to destroy a man for his money, and it saw a man who had given away his fortune to help others. The narrative wasn't hard to write. Vanessa eventually moved to Los Angeles and married another wealthy man, probably was already doing so. Their marriage probably looked exactly like her marriage to Marcus. Beautiful on the surface, empty underneath. But that wasn't Marcus's story anymore. Marcus's story became about transformation. It became about a man who realized that his greatest achievement wasn't making $1 billion. It was making a difference. 1 year after he met Zara, Marcus asked her to marry him. He didn't do it with diamonds and champagne and a flash mob. He did it simply, in the house she now owned, surrounded by her 3 children who called him Uncle Marcus, and then, eventually, just Dad. He proposed with his mother's old wedding ring, the one she had worn for 30 years, the one she had told him to never, ever sell because it was worth more than gold. It was worth a promise kept. Zara said yes, and she cried. She cried because she had lost everything once and thought she would never have anything again. She cried because someone had believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. She cried because the universe had a funny way of giving you back what you thought was gone, just transformed into something unexpected. They married on the grounds of the homeless shelter, with Patricia as officiant and 40 residents as witnesses. It was the most beautiful wedding Marcus had ever seen, and it cost nothing. Because the wealth in that moment wasn't measured in dollars. It was measured in the people gathered, in the love present, In the knowledge that this man and this woman, they had seen each other, really seen each other, and they had chosen to build something real. Years later, Marcus would tell his story to business schools and universities. They would ask him how he had become so wealthy, and he would say, "That's the wrong question. The real question is, how did I become so empty? And how did I become full again?" He would tell them about the weak in the shelter, about the woman who fed herself less so others could eat more, about the man who had lost everything but hadn't lost his humanity, about a place where the poorest people were richer in spirit than any billionaire he had ever met. And the students would listen. Some of them would understand. Some of them would walk out and forget about it by the next day. That was fine. Marcus had learned that you can't force people to see. You can only show them. You can only hope that somewhere in your story, there's a mirror, and they'll look into it and recognize themselves. But the ones who did understand, the ones who did remember, they would go out into the world and they would be different. They would see the homeless person on the street corner and they would see a person. They would see the janitor at their office and they would see a human being. They would see people and they would recognize that wealth comes in many forms, and the most important form can't be bought with money. Marcus founded his foundation, and Zara ran it, and together they helped thousands of people rebuild their lives. Not through charity, but through dignity. Through the recognition that every person has worth. Every person deserves to be seen. And every Tuesday, Marcus and Zara would return to the shelter where they met. They would work in the kitchen. They would serve lunch. They would sit with the residents and listen to their stories. Because Marcus had learned something in that shelter that no business school could teach him, that no amount of money could buy, that no achievement could compare to. He had learned what it meant to be truly wealthy, and it had nothing to do with the numbers in his bank account. It had everything to do with the woman standing beside him, making sandwiches out of love. It had everything to do with the faces of the people they served. It had everything to do with the promise he had made to his mother, kept at last. When Marcus's mother died, she had been a housekeeper. When Marcus's mother lived, she had been a queen. Not because of her status or her money, but because of who she was. Because of the way she loved. Because of the dignity she carried even when the world told her she was supposed to be ashamed. Marcus had spent his entire life running from that memory, trying to escape the poverty she had experienced. Trying to prove that he was better than where he came from. Trying to become someone so important that he could never be hurt again. But it took a week in a homeless shelter and a woman with honey-colored eyes to show him that his mother had been right all along. That the greatest achievement isn't building an empire. It's keeping your heart open. It's seeing people. It's choosing kindness even when it costs you. The day Marcus wore his mother's ring again, when he married Zara and stood in front of 40 people who had nothing but everything, he finally understood. He finally kept the promise. And when little Emma, Zara's baby, came up to him at the reception and asked, "Are you my dad now?" Marcus knelt down and said, "Yes, baby, I am." And he meant it with every ounce of wealth he had ever accumulated, with every dollar he had ever made, with every moment of his carefully constructed life. Because he had finally learned what his mother always knew, that the most important thing you can ever be is loved. And the most important thing you can ever do is love others. This is the story of a billionaire who became a beggar so he could understand what it meant to be rich, and a woman who had nothing but gave everything and taught him what wealth really meant. And if you ever find yourself with a full plate and someone beside you with an empty one, remember Zara. Remember the way she cut her bread thin so others could eat. Remember that true wealth